I was living alone in a small rental house just outside of town when this whole thing happened. It was a single-story place at the very end of a short dead-end road. There were only 5 houses on the entire street, and at night, it was always completely quiet. Since I worked from home doing freelance graphic design, I didn't leave most days unless I had to grab groceries. I didn't get unexpected visitors either. My friends always texted before coming over. That's exactly why the first knock stood out so much. It was around 8:45 on a Thursday night. I was just in the living room watching TV when I heard 4 firm knocks on the front door.
I paused the TV and waited, hoping my mind was playing tricks on me, but 2 more knocks followed. Creeping up to the door, I peered through the peephole. A guy in his mid-30s, wearing a dark jacket and a baseball cap, was standing on the porch, holding a medium-sized cardboard box. He looked completely normal. I cracked the door open, but left the security chain engaged. He immediately claimed he had a delivery that required a signature and read a name off his small handheld scanner. It wasn't my name. It wasn't even close. When I told him he had the wrong address, he looked down at the box, checked his device, and then looked back at me. He read the address aloud. It was perfectly accurate. I reiterated that no one by that name lived here. He stared at me for a second longer than necessary before muttering that he must have been given the wrong info and would take it back to his truck. I watched him walk back down my driveway. I fully expected to see a delivery van or a car parked nearby, but there was nothing. He just walked past my mailbox and turned the corner. I shut the door and locked it, convincing myself it was just a disorganized local courier without a marked vehicle. The very next evening, at almost the exact same time, 3 knocks rattled the door again. This time, I didn't open it right away. I went straight to the peephole. It was him again, with the exact same jacket and box. I kept the door shut and simply shouted through the wood that he had already tried this and the person didn't live here. He didn't respond immediately. Finally, he insisted the system required a signature for a mandatory evening delivery. I firmly refused to sign for a stranger. A long pause fell over the porch. Then he said, "Okay," and stepped back. But he didn't walk away. He stood at the edge of my yard, slowly turning his head to scan my front windows, then the side of the property, before his gaze drifted back to the door. After about 15 agonizing seconds, he finally walked down the driveway. Once again, there was no vehicle. My gut told me something was terribly wrong. On the 3rd night, there was no knock. I actually felt relieved, thinking he had finally figured out the mistake. But on the 4th night, while I was washing dishes in the kitchen around 9 p.m., 4 sharp taps hit the glass. It wasn't the front door. It was on the side of the house, near the dining room window. I slowly walked over and looked out, but saw empty darkness. Seconds later, 4 more knocks hit the front door. Through the peephole, I saw him again, but this time, his hands were completely empty. I didn't make a sound. He knocked again, then stepped back and stared directly into the peephole lens. I silently backed away so he couldn't see any movement. After half a minute, he turned and left. I waited 5 full minutes before peeking through the blinds with the lights off. He was standing across the street near the tree line, just staring dead at my house. A minute later, he melted into the darkness. I rechecked every single lock. The following morning, I called the police non-emergency line. The officer explained it was a common tactic for burglars to verify occupancy before breaking in, advising me to call 911 if he returned. That night, I killed all the front lights and hid in my bedroom. At 8:45 p.m. sharp, the 4 knocks echoed through the house. I didn't respond. After a brief pause, he knocked again. Then, dead silence. A minute passed before I heard a faint thud against the back of the house, followed by another. Someone was testing the rear entry. Heart pounding, I grabbed my phone and crept into the hallway. I watched the back doorknob slowly twist, stop, and twist again. I dialed 911, whispering to the dispatcher that someone was trying to break in. While I was on the line, the front door knocking resumed. There was more than one person out there. Then came the chilling sound of metal scraping against the back door frame. After about 30 seconds, the noises stopped completely. I stayed on the phone until flashing sirens lit up my street. The police found fresh pry marks near the back handle. The officer said if I hadn't been inside, they would have easily forced the door open. They patrolled the area, but found no one.
The next night, I stayed at my brother's apartment across town without posting anything online. Around 9 p.m., my neighbor called. She said a man had been standing on my porch, knocking repeatedly for at least 5 minutes. I told her to call the cops. Officers arrived and questioned him. He gave a pathetic excuse about a misplaced package, despite having no ID or vehicle. They warned him to stay off the property.
2 days later, police arrested him in a nearby neighborhood after he was caught attempting to break into a vacationing family's home. His car was filled with empty cardboard boxes and a fake handheld scanner. He confessed his entire strategy to detectives. He used the fake package routine to see who was home. If someone answered, he'd leave and mark it occupied. If ignored repeatedly over multiple nights, he'd return to force entry. He even monitored lighting patterns to confirm the house was empty. It hit me like a ton of bricks. If I had simply ignored the door that very first night, he would have come back later expecting an empty house. I moved out of that place 3 months later. To this day, I don't answer my door at night unless I know exactly who is coming over. And if someone shows up with a package that doesn't have my exact name on it, I don't even go near the door.
This story begins right in the lead up to Christmas. Just to set the scene, I live just outside Glasgow in Scotland. I share a house with my parents, my siblings, and our family cats and dogs. We are a very close-knit household and spend most of our evenings together in the main living space, watching shows, playing board games, and just catching up on the day. At the time this happened, I was 16 and about to turn 17. I was still in high school, but getting ready to move on to higher education. A few days before Christmas, during one of our typical late-night movie sessions, we were watching A Christmas Carol. It is a family tradition of ours, and it is honestly one of my favorite parts of the season. Right in the middle of the film, a solid knock hit our front door.
It wasn't completely out of the ordinary, so we did not panic. My mom got up from the couch to answer it, but she found an empty porch. The street outside was entirely clear. Our yard wraps from the front driveway all the way around to the back of the property. She checked the side path just to be sure, but there was absolutely no one around. She walked back inside, and we pressed play on the movie again.
A couple of days went by. I was sitting at the dining table working on some exam preparation when another knock echoed through the room. I put my pen down and went straight to the door, but once again, the porch was deserted. We just assumed it was local kids pulling a prank. In our area, teenagers sometimes get bored and cause minor trouble. There is a popular game in Scotland called Chappie, where kids bang on your door and run away laughing. It is a stupid game, but the adrenaline of running away is something kids find amusing. We have a family group chat to keep everyone updated, and over that week, multiple family members mentioned hearing the exact same thing.
The incident that really stood out happened to my dad. He usually stays up much later than the rest of us, playing games or watching his own shows after the house goes completely dark. One night around 11:30 p.m., long past the time any kids should be outside, he heard a distinct knock. He found it very strange given the hour. He looked right through the peephole before touching the lock, but the porch was totally empty. He opened the door to scan the area. The street was dead still. He locked up and came upstairs to ask if we heard it, but the sound had been too light to wake anyone else. This pattern started to genuinely unsettle us. No one ever heard footsteps, laughing, or running. It was just the knock and then nothing. That felt completely different from a standard neighborhood prank.
Everything reached a boiling point on Christmas Day. We spent the entire afternoon opening gifts, spending time together, and eating way too much holiday food. It was a perfect day. Later that evening, I felt incredibly full, which always happens to me on the holidays. I headed upstairs to my bedroom to lie down. I ended up falling asleep and woke up several hours later. My phone screen read 2:01 a.m. The rest of the family was in bed, and the entire house was pitch black. I knew I was not going to fall back asleep. Once I wake up in the middle of the night, my brain refuses to shut off. Instead of turning on the television, I stayed in bed and scrolled through social media, watching holiday videos and texting friends who were also awake. Sometime later, a sudden knock broke the silence. I could not tell if it hit my bedroom door or the window. I sat up straight in my bed, staring into the darkness with my heart pounding in my chest. I did not want to move a single muscle. No one had any reason to be outside at 2 a.m. on Christmas night. I questioned if the past few weeks of prank knocks were just making me paranoid, or if someone had actually broken in. My room is on the second floor, making a window knock nearly impossible. After what felt like an eternity, I pushed myself to open my bedroom door. The second I did, I heard heavy footsteps stomping up the wooden stairs. My mind immediately rationalized that it was just my dad heading to bed late. I stepped out toward the landing to tell him I was awake. Right then, another knock hit the front door downstairs. That is when I realized the person on the stairs was not my dad. We found the man passed out on our living room couch. He had opened several of my dad's beers and spilled them everywhere. My mom yelled at him to get out immediately. He woke up slightly and started aggressively yelling back, claiming he owned the house. We tried to pull him up, but he was completely dead weight. My mom smacked his arm to get his attention, but he barely flinched. My dad finally came all the way down the stairs, assessed the danger, and took absolute control. He shouted at the intruder that he was trespassing and demanded he leave. The man flatly refused. My dad physically grabbed him off the sofa and dragged him toward the side exit. He shoved him out into the cold and issued a final warning before slamming the door shut.
We took a collective breath, thinking the nightmare was over. A split second later, the glass beside the door shattered inward. The man had punched his fist straight through the window pane. He shoved his face into the jagged opening, looking exactly like a scene from a horror movie. My dad grabbed the phone to dial the police while the man screamed violent threats at us. He claimed he knew what we looked like and promised to come back. We were in absolute shock. A home invasion on Christmas night felt unreal. He eventually pulled away and stumbled off before the police arrived. The officers took detailed statements from everyone, especially me, since I encountered him first. It had actually snowed that night, which is incredibly rare for our town. The man left a bright red trail of blood in the white snow leading straight down the road. The police followed it directly to a local playground, where they found him bleeding on the ground. They arrested him on the spot. We had the window replaced the very next morning. My younger siblings completely slept through the entire ordeal, likely exhausted from the holiday excitement. I filed a restraining order against him, due to my age and the specific threats he made. The court gave him a fine and community service. During his police interview,
He completely denied knowing anything about the weeks of knocking prior to the break-in. He claimed he used to live in our house many years ago, drank far too much that night, and simply walked into the wrong address by mistake. Thankfully, no one suffered any major injuries. My mom just had a badly bruised wrist from hitting him while wearing heavy bracelets. To this day, we never found out who was actually knocking on our door all those nights leading up to Christmas. Even now, I still hear random knocks in the middle of the night. It might just be my imagination playing tricks on me, but I will never truly know if it was him, or if someone else was standing out there watching us the entire time.